This is me and my longtime friend Brett playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. We have a ritual every Sunday after work to catch up and play a few games. He plays Falco, I play Marth, and as for how this all started, well...
It all started with a piece on Kotaku ranking the best moments in the history of competitive gaming.
It was November of 2017, and for our yearly ritual I had Brett over yet again to catch the finals of the League of Legends World Championship.
He pushed mid first. You can see the flash hold left. They've caught Baker. They've got the CC. The mid laner is down. The unkillable Demon King has done just live.
We were blown away by the narrative behind it all. The story of Samsung and SKT and Faker. It was a great moment for anyone who was a fan of competitive League of Legends. So naturally, we decided to start playing again. Game after game of League, we'd climb the duo queue ladder and daydream about one day being as good as Faker or Sneaky or any of the other pro players. We wanted to be them and carve out our own story, regardless of how unlikely that would be. It was me who started it. Because I played so much League, I was obsessed with it. My YouTube feed was filled with video after video on the popular MOBA. Eventually, I got to see the Eyes on Worlds mini-documentary that was made about the event. I had this feeling after watching it, like it wasn't enough. I wanted to see more documentaries just like this one. It didn't even have to be about League. There was just something I loved about seeing these stories about great players. So I searched video game documentary and started looking for a good one to watch in my spare time. I found an absolutely horrific documentary about the struggles of Team Liquid, and then I found a BBC documentary by Dan Howell? And finally, I stumbled onto one by a channel called Innuendo Studios, speaking briefly about competitive Smash Bros. Melee. It was a very well made video, but left me with more questions than anything else. And none more so than... what's the Smash Bros. Documentary? League went straight out the window. I've never been more hooked by something in my life. I must have watched it about 20 to 30 times. I went out and bought a GameCube, some controllers, a copy of Melee, and a CRT to boot. I convinced Brett to join me, and after watching the documentary in his own time, he too was convinced. Day in and day out was either us playing or training in our spare time. Wave dash training, dash dance training, chain grabbing, pillar comboing. This game was complicated on a level I hadn't experienced before. It really did feel like learning how to play an instrument. We wanted more though. We wanted to actually go to a tournament and improve off of other people, not just each other. So I did some research to see if there were any tournaments running in Brisbane. And man, what I found. We were lucky enough to have a fiercely competitive and active scene. We put a day aside and finally went down to begin our Smash careers. We created the tags Zerg and B21 respectively, although I later changed my tag to Aslan, and so began our chance to carve out our own story. My first couple of tournaments were very rough, very few wins and mountains of losses, but in each loss was a lesson to be learned. Each close game I barely lost created a rival to overcome. I got to see familiar faces each week and overcome older players and improve alongside newer ones. It was a vibrant scene complete with its own live stream. It even had its own set of gods, players whose skill far surpassed anybody else at these tournaments. I initially improved slowly over the passing weeks, until I met a player who had his eye on the prize. He wanted to be king atop the great mountain of Queensland Melee. He had dreams as big as his heart, and he may not know it, but he changed my life forever. I met a player named Kami. Kami was a competitor. He was hungrier than anybody else in the scene and was improving fast. Previously, a Fox player by the name of Smopup had been #1 for years. While I'm not sure if it's true, I heard some of the other gods had apparently never even taken a game off of his Fox. Smo would often play different characters at tournaments that weren't even his main. That's how good he was. I became friends with Kami at the perfect time. He approached me at a tournament between games to give me some pointers and tips. We played a few games and the difference in our skill level was immediately apparent. I couldn't take a set. I couldn't take a game. I couldn't even take a stock off of him. His Fox wasn't just fast, it was also methodical, and his ability to punish my mistakes, which there was plenty of, was ridiculous. We switched to talking online, hung out in real life, and had full days dedicated to training and improving at his house. I really think we became friends. I certainly considered him one of mine. Around the time we met began Kami's rise to the top. He had a good enough Fox to take on Oro, Russell, and Psyche reliably. He was consistently making it to grand finals, but also consistently just falling short to Smopup. Kami had this determination that was fierce, however. With every loss came a lesson. Since the matches were streamed, he could watch the VODs at home to see what he did wrong. He would then sit and grind for hours and hours to fix his mistakes, and then come back and try to take on Smopup again next week. At first, it was all about taking a stock turned into a game turned into two, and it wasn't long before Kami started winning.
for Kami. The big 3-1.
Week after week it was the same thing. Kami and Smope up in grand finals. Kami consistently taking the win. Some finals were closer than others, but after winning his first big boy, Kami would go on to win the next 3 straight. Of the 11 big boy tournaments that took place in Brisbane, Kami would attend 9 of them, winning 6 of those 9 and winning many more side tournaments between events. Eventually, Kami was granted the first place seed for Brisbane tournaments, and became widely recognised as the best player in Queensland. I remember just one question being at the forefront of my mind. Where do we go from here? Well, Kami had an answer.
Oh, what? What was that? Oh, that Armada's so good. Work for Australia. What? And then what?
Oh! I still there. Got a bomb. Bomb! Oh my God! What? Oh my!
What you are seeing is footage from Australia's biggest tournament, Battle Arena Melbourne, a large enough stage to attract international talent such as Armada and Chudat. Kami took a flight down to BAM and out of 182 entrants finished at a respectable 17th place. Despite being the best player in Queensland, he couldn't penetrate the top 8, and it made sense why. Kami was the best, he had overcome his rivals, but in doing so there was no more local talent to chase, no more mountains to climb. Kami was the mountain. So he had an idea. Why not train up other players, newer ones with a similar drive to him? We formed Team Kami. It was him as the leader and mentor, along with Switch, Rainth, and myself. Meetups were frequent, and we all piggybacked off of each other for support and growth. All 4 of us had a goal on the horizon, a new tournament, bigger than anything we had been to before, Smash's Paradise on the Gold Coast. We all took this as our chance to shine. I set aside the weeks leading up to it and focused purely on practice and play. I did very little in this time besides from play Smash. I didn't meet up with my friends, I spent less time with my girlfriend, I didn't go to work or study or anything. I was driven. I had to practice for Smash's Paradise. I had to do well. I had to. But what about Brett in all of this? Brett was taking more shifts at work and focusing more on his life and his friends. Where I started to practice more, he instead practiced less. The skill gap between us quickly widened, and pretty soon he stopped attending tournaments. I remembered this one time Kami and I were at his house, and he was teaching me how to chain grab. He said he spent a solid 8 straight hours one day just sitting in front of his CRT, practicing chain grabbing over and over again. Then the next day it was something else. Then something else again the day after that. He told me that the reason he got good was because he was the only person willing to put in the time to get good. He was adamant that to reach that upper echelon of play, you had to be willing to put in the time. Do you know why Michael Jordan was so good at basketball? It was because he was obsessed with basketball. It was all he ever thought about or cared about. When he put in that much time and energy into what he did, it was no wonder why he was the greatest player of all time. Tony Hawk, Armada, all of them, natural talent only took them so far. It was their drive and their obsessions that made them into legends. Kami understood this. It was why he was willing to put in so much time into practice and training. And shortly before Smash's Paradise was when I started to understand it, and it absolutely horrified me. I wasn't sure if I was ready to commit all of my time and attention into Smash. Smash's Paradise had arrived. It was funny, I really enjoyed myself there, and yet I couldn't help but call back memories of what felt like so long ago. I remembered sitting and cheering alongside my friend Brett while we watched the League of Legends World Final. We looked up to people like Faker with adoration. We wanted to be just like him. And now here I was, just a couple of months later. The road was before me, all laid out, but now I understood the amount of sacrifice that it would take to walk it. And I didn't know if I wanted to anymore. I attended a few more casual tournaments, but Smash's Paradise was the last major tournament that I ever attended. I don't really talk to the people from the tournament scene anymore. I went out and got a job. My girlfriend moved in with me. I started studying again with online courses. I focused a lot of my spare time into art, such as video making and in particular creative writing. Brett and I work the same night shift job on Saturday, so every Sunday morning he comes around mine and we play for old time's sakes. I switched characters from Marv to Fox purely because I thought it would be more fun. I haven't been to a tournament in months, nor have I really spoken to the people who still go. From what I can see, the scene seems to be doing better than ever. I've turned my attention fully to work and creative writing, and I have confidence that I'll succeed, because a wise man once taught me, you can do whatever you want in life. You just have to put in enough time, hard work, and practice to get good at it. Kami, if you're out there, thank you. You may not have meant to, or might not even be aware that you have, but you really did teach me one of life's most valuable lessons. And for that, I thank you. I'd like to thank the following people: Jackalanch, Dozium, Konza, Quib, and Locke. All of you were around my skill level and were great rivals. Much fun was had competing against you. I'd like to thank Eros, Jubes, and Whatles for being a source of fun and being great company at each tournament event. I want to thank Konza and Quib for your commentary and for running the Cash Smash tournament series. You two always kept things fresh and fun. Huge shout out to Bad for organising Big Boy and Smash's Paradise and for setting up the stream each and every week. Thank you to Switch, Wraith, and XP2000 for being on board with the Kami train. And again, I'd like to thank you, Kami. You've taught me many valuable lessons in Smash and in life, even if you didn't mean to. Thank you to all of the Queensland Smash community. My time with you all was brief, but meant a great deal to me. Links will be left in the description to Kami's live stream, and the Queensland Melee Twitch stream, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.